Perverted and thirsty characters are something of a staple in anime. The medium is full of thirsty men and women who'll do just about anything to get what they want, be it sexual satisfaction or some other goal that they're desperate to get. Suffice it to say, you don't have to look far to find some thirsty anime characters. So let's take a look at some of the thirstiest of all time. FAYE Valentine. Our first entry is a unique one, since as many fans of Cowboy Bebop know, FAYE isn't one for romance or pining after a man. Especially not after she was so horribly betrayed by the first man she fell in love with after waking up in the future. No, FAYE has no interest in that sort of thing, but since she's a textbook femme fatale, she does know how to use her sexuality to get what she wants, a pretty common occurrence for the character throughout the series. As such, one could easily describe her as manipulatively thirsty, since she'll show interest in a man in order to get whatever it is she wants out of him. Money, power, information, you name it. And that actually brings us to another point. The fact that FAYE's in many ways thirsty for cash. Specifically, fast and easy cash. Perpetually lazy and unwilling to work for her money, FAYE's often seen gambling or attempting to swindle her way to wealth, showing that her greatest thirst is for riches that she doesn't have to work for. It might be a bit of a stretch to say that FAYE's an incredibly thirsty character, but we wanted to include her on this list because of how she uses the thirst of others to get what she wants. Lupin the Third. Though Lupin the Third is described as a gentleman thief when it comes to women, he's often anything but, flirting and attempting to sleep with every beautiful woman he comes across. In fact, it's this very habit of his that gets him in the most trouble, his constant infatuation with beautiful women, like Fujiko, often putting him in difficult and dire situations. Because of how often Lupin becomes infatuated with the fairer sex, it's not too crazy to say that the skilled thief's biggest weakness is women, most of the ladies he's interacted with being the cause of various conflicts throughout the long-running anime. He's not exactly perverted, but he's definitely thirsty, so much so that dating beautiful women is practically one of his hobbies. Suffice it to say, Lupin can't control himself when encountering gorgeous women, losing his focus and falling for traps that he wouldn't normally fall for. Because of this, there's no doubt that he's one of the thirstiest anime characters of all time, especially because, and we know we're really driving this point home, all of his skills and experience as a thief go straight out the window whenever a beautiful lady's involved. The fact that Lupin becomes much worse at his job when faced with beautiful women really is a powerful testament to how much of a thirsty horn dog he really is. SARUTOBI AYAME. SARUTOBI AYAME only has eyes for one man, Gintoki Sakata, the main protagonist of Gintama, and her thirst for the man of her dreams goes to some extreme lengths. This mainly manifests in the form of stalking, since Sarutobi is mostly depicted as following Gin around without his knowledge, though he does catch wind eventually, often throwing things at her when catching her in the act. Ayame's thirst also manifests in her masochistic personality, which was apparently awoken by Gin himself when she fell in love with him. Her masochism has led to some pretty strange interactions between her and Gin, all of which show just how thirsty of a character she really is. One common interaction between the two is Gin calling Ayame perverted or dirty, which only fuels the flames over her lust, since the punishment of this name-calling as well as his other bad treatment towards her only ends up serving her masochistic desires. So when Gin thinks he's dissuading her advances, he's really only making things worse. In fact, despite Gin being downright hostile towards her, Sarutobi's affection and thirst towards him only continues, showing that she's easily one of the thirstiest girls in anime, since she can and will turn all of Gin's dismissive actions into fuel for her perverted masochistic desires. Jiraiya. Here's a character who's so perverted and proud of said perverted ways that he actually refers to himself as a super pervert with no equal. We're of course talking about Jiraiya of Naruto, a powerful shinobi in his own right who has spent just as much time honing his pervy skills as he has training as a ninja. There are so many things to look at when describing just how thirsty and pervy Jiraiya is. The funniest being the fact that he's essentially a ninja erotica author. You know how Kakashi was always seen reading a steamy romance novel in the early days of training Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura? Well, Jiraiya wrote that book, and many others, using his many pervy actions as the inspiration for his writing. What pervy actions? Well, one of the character's favorite pastimes was spying on girls. A deplorable act for sure, but somewhat impressive considering that he rarely, if ever, got caught. Not that it makes his actions any less terrible. One good example of just how thirsty Jiraiya is comes from his introduction to the series, when Naruto was trying to convince him to train him. Jiraiya turned down the request until Naruto used his sexy jutsu transformation on him, which changed the pervy sage's mind rather quickly, though he stated he'd only train Naruto if he stayed in the form throughout. HARUHARA HARUKO. Next up is HARUHARA HARUKO of Fooly Cooly, who's a bit different from the other characters on this list for two main reasons. First, the character's thirst is less for sexual gratification and more for the power which she seeks, the power of Atomisk. Second, in order to get said power, she's been known to act in a rather lustful way towards those who can help her with her goal. Let's start with that first part. Haruko's an investigator for the Galactic Space Police Brotherhood, and she's looking for Atomisk in the hopes of stealing his power. The lust for which the character has in searching for Atomisk's power is pretty similar to sexual lust, so it's not crazy to say that she's thirsty for power. And for how she gets it, Haruko seeks the weapons that come out of people's heads. It's a bit hard to explain in the time we have, so let's just say that the better or bigger the weapon that a person can produce, the more interested Haruko is in them, which is why she acts so thirsty around the original series main character Naota, his head acting as a powerful tool for her goals. The metaphor of weapon size and power is pretty obvious, so it's not crazy to call Haruko one of anime's thirstiest characters. Mellie Otis. Moving on to the world of the 7 deadly sins, we have something of a strange pervert in the form of the show's main character Mellie Otis. Why is he strange exactly? Well, because he tends to be rather casual with his pervertedness. This is to say that whenever Mellie Otis grabs a hold of Elizabeth, it's often with a mundane or laid-back expression on his face, as though he's not committing a highly perverted act. Suffice it to say, Mellie Otis is incredibly thirsty for Elizabeth, which borders into a creepy territory that we don't really care to delve into. Regardless, it's clear that Mellie Otis is a pervert, since he constantly gropes Elizabeth and makes her wear revealing outfits, like the barmaid outfit that he gave her upon hiring her at his tavern. Perhaps the strangest part about Mellie Otis's thirst is that it stems from the fact that, spoilers, Elizabeth is the reincarnation of Mellie Otis's deceased lover, Liz, who we learned in flashbacks was also subject to the knight's groping attacks. Suffice it to say, though it was only aimed at specific people, Mellie Otis is sort of a lecherous, thirsty creep, and even though he saved the kingdom, someone should definitely knock him around for his perverted ways. In fact, the series could definitely do without Mellie Otis's lecherous moments, since the cool battles and great storytelling don't really need to be interrupted by any fan service. Panty Stocking with Garter Belt is a weird anime. It's styled in the same vein as 90s Cartoon Network shows, but the content is much dirtier. The series follows sisters Panty and Stocking, angels who were cast out of heaven for being too sinful and must earn their way back by hunting ghosts and demons, using their panties and stockings respectively as weapons to fight said supernatural creatures. So what exactly did the sisters do that was so sinful? Well, Stocking's sweet tooth makes her the personification of gluttony, while Panty's thirsty desires make her the personification of lust. As such, Panty is one of the thirstiest characters in all of anime, rotating through a number of partners throughout the series. Now, there's no shame in Panty's original life, but the sheer number of people that Panty sleeps with as well as her shameless flirting are definitely meant to be a point of humor in the series. So much so that when the sisters actually earned enough heaven coins to get back into heaven, Panty was left behind while Stocking ascended. The reason being because she was just too dang thirsty. Suffice it to say, Panty only has one thing on her mind, making her one of the thirstiest characters in anime. Sanji. Let's talk about the resident pervert to the Straw Hat Pirates, Sanji from One Piece. Although the character's true talent lies in preparing meals for his crew, one could also argue that his perverted girl-crazy nature is just as strong of a trait as his cooking skills, most of his thirsty affections being targeted at Nami. Sanji's thirst for women is definitely much less intrusive than the actions of some other characters though, since he tends to fall in love more than act like a creep, but the character is one of the thirstiest in anime all the same. Whenever a beautiful woman wanders into his sight, you can bet that Sanji's eyes will turn into big pink hearts, and he'll be proclaiming his love for them. That said, he's also been prone to nosebleeds like any other perverted character. But most of Sanji's affections are aimed towards Nami, who he clearly has a deep admiration for. In fact, Sanji actually admitted that Nami was pretty much the only reason he joined Luffy's crew, which shows just how thirsty he is for the red-headed navigator. Perhaps the greatest measure of just how strong Sanji's thirsty side can be is the fact that he's normally a calm, cool person, putting on a chill demeanor that's almost always shattered whenever he falls for a beautiful woman. Boa Hancock. Boa Hancock from One Piece is in love with Luffy. There's no other way to put it. After being wronged by men for most of her young life, she gained a hatred for them. A hatred that would only be challenged by Luffy, who warmed her fragile heart and became the object of her affection. As weird as this is, considering Luffy isn't even 20 while Boa's in her 30s, it has also resulted in some of the funniest moments in the series. This is because while Boa has an unrelenting thirst for Monkey D. Luffy, the object of her affection is the most obtuse, aloof, and romantically ignorant person on the planet. Luffy has absolutely no interest in love, so Boa's advances are always completely lost on the rubbery pirate. Despite this, Boa still retains her immense thirst for Luffy, often dreaming up elaborate romantic fantasies involving the two of them as Luffy completely ignores her feelings. There are very few interactions between the two that Boa Hancock won't over-romanticize in her head, which is probably why she got fiercely jealous at the thought of Luffy having female crew members on his ship. While these two may never end up together, since Ichiro Oda has stated he's not interested in writing about romance, there's no denying that Boa Hancock is one of anime's thirstiest ladies. It just happens to be for one specific person. Master Roshi. In the number 1 spot, we have one of the most infamously perverted characters in all of anime. The turtle hermit himself, Master Roshi. From the very first moment he was introduced, we were made aware that Master Roshi was little more than an old hoot who liked ogling girls and would do anything to get his hands on the fairer sex. In fact, Roshi's so thirsty for those ladies that Goku and Krillin actually had to find him a lady friend in order to receive his martial arts training, leading Launch to join the cast. Even crazier, Master Roshi's perverted nature was used to Goku's advantage when facing See-Through, the invisible warrior who became visible when Master Roshi sprayed blood from his nose onto him upon seeing Bulma topless. This kind of behavior continued all throughout Dragon Ball, and arguably got worse in Dragon Ball Z, since the character contributed less to the action of the series and shifted into a comic relief role. Because of this, pretty much every time we saw Roshi in Dragon Ball Z, it was to see him attempt to grope Bulma, Chi-Chi, or even Android 18, all of which earned him swift karmic justice in the form of painful retaliations. However, Roshi eventually got past his terrible habits by the time of the Tournament of Power, training himself to resist women, and making some actual significant character growth as a result. Those are just some of the thirstiest characters in anime. We bet you weren't expecting some of those curveballs we threw in there, were ya? Are there any thirsty characters that we left out? Let us know down in the comments section below, and don't forget to subscribe to CBR for more anime videos. Thanks for watching.